We'll begin with a land acknowledgement. Missoula County would like to acknowledge that this event takes place on the Aboriginal lands of the Salish and Kalispel people, that we are grateful. Would you join me now in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which
stands one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Great. Thank you very much. Do we have any public announcements? Great, thanks. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, with that, I will review our current claims list. These are claims received as of December 4th, 2020 through December 8th, 2020 by the Commissioner's Office. These claims total $1,385,654.14. If you'd like to see how that money was spent, you certainly can at our website. Today we have one hearing and one hearing only. This is on our temporary safe outdoor space, and Karen Hughes from CAPS will present. Karen.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Let's see, I'm going to try and get this, choose the right screen. Do you see my presentation?
Yep.
All right. And is it in presentation mode? No?
It seemed, well.
There we go.
There we go. Yep, now it is.
All right. All right. My name is Karen Hughes. I'm with Missoula County Community Planning Services. I'm the Assistant Director. And today we are going to talk about the temporary safe outdoor space, which is located at 4285 US Highway 93 South. Hopefully it switched to the next slide.
Yep.
Okay. So just an overview of the presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about the issue that's advertised today, which is a public hearing about the possibility of adopting interim zoning or zoning compliance for the temporary safe outdoor space at this property. I'm going to talk a little bit, go over some potential solutions the commissioners might want to consider. These are outlined in the staff memo that accompanies your packet. I'll provide an overview of the temporary safe outdoor space, go over the comments that we received to date, present some findings from the staff memo, and then we'll review the potential motions the commissioners might want to consider, and then probably we'll go to public comment after that. So the issue that is before you is zoning compliance for the temporary safe outdoor space at the subject property, which is shown here. That property is located within zoning district 39, which is primarily a residential zoning district. And we'll talk a little bit more after, as we get through the description and the findings, how we got to the possible solutions. But essentially the options that we're suggesting at this point are two. One is that you can determine that the temporary safe outdoor space could continue to operate at this location until the end of the current state of emergency. Or you could direct staff to prepare an interim zoning resolution that would specifically allow the emergency outdoor homeless shelter temporarily as a permitted use at the subject property. So as an overview of the temporary safe outdoor space, TSOS, the property is located between Buckhouse Bridge and Blue Mountain Road. It's on the north side of Highway 93 South. The parcel is about 60 acres in size. The site that's been developed for the space, the temporary safe outdoor space, is about 700 feet from the Bitterroot River and about 800 feet from Highway 93 and the Missoula Trail. Because of its location just outside the city limits for the city of Missoula, it has relatively easy access for service providers, and residents who end up here can access employment and services via Mountain Line. And its proximity to Missoula makes provides easy proximity to hospitals and other services. The temporary safe outdoor space addresses a number of unmet needs of unhoused Missoulians during the pandemic because shelters are not operating at full capacity, and people, as we know, in safe environments without access to bathrooms and trash removal. It was created under the county's emergency operations plan through partnerships between the county and United Way, Hope Rescue Mission, and a variety of other nonprofits, faith community, law enforcement, and so on. And it's been funded through the CARES Act. The services provided at this location include 24/7 on-site staff, security, in part because it's on private property, 20 two-person tent sites, which are on temporary platforms, outreach and case management support, wellness screenings, PPEs, water and food, trash removal, and bathrooms. So, and just, I'm going to go back once. All of this is intended to be a temporary operation, and it's intended to just last through the state of emergency. Just to clarify that this isn't intended as a permanent situation. So in terms of comments received, there was a legal ad placed in the Missoulian. We also sent notice to property owners within 300 feet of the subject property and within the zoning district 39. And there's been information posted on the website. As of earlier today, there were about 37 pages worth of public comments and a handful of voicemails received. There were a number of key themes in the comments. There were a number of them that expressed general opposition and had a number of questions. And then there were also some expressing some support. In terms of the opposition, some of the key issues that folks raised had to do with concerns about the public hearing process and notice. Some folks a number of folks commented on impacts to neighbors, the nearby historic district, the Missoula to Lolo Trail, and the river. Safety and security were issues that have been raised, and concerns that this really is a long-term problem, not an emergency situation, and concerns that this may not be really a temporary situation. Also, concerns that the regulatory processes haven't been followed adequately in terms of things like zoning, and concerns about the use of government money, taxpayer money, CARES Act money, etc. And then there was a handful of other issues. I know the commissioners have had access to this, but I just want to make sure it's in the public record for anyone listening today. But liability, the speed of the site deployment, a number of questions and suggestions about how to manage the site and requirements for occupants, concerns that maybe this might be the wrong location, and that there's other basic needs in the community that need to be met. So that's a basic overview of the public comments that we've received to date. We also contacted interested agencies. Those included Parks, Trails, Open Lands, Public Works, the Floodplain Management Program, the NRC's Floodplain Management Program, the Conservation District, the Sheriff's Office, Health Department, Fire District, Office of Emergency Management, Weed District, MDT, and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. We only received one substantive comment, and that's from Larry Schock at the DNRC Floodplain Management Program regarding the potential need for floodplain permitting at the location, which I know is in your comment set as well. So now I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to talk a little bit about the findings that are outlined in the staff report and findings the commissioners may want to use in whatever decision you decide you move towards today. Of course, as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic's created a state of emergency. It's a national state of emergency under presidential declaration. Governor Bullock declared a state of emergency, and the county passed an emergency proclamation and activated its emergency operations plan on March 20th of this year. As part of this emergency, there's been a great deal of guidance provided to local governments and communities from the federal government, and specifically in regards to folks experiencing homelessness and transmission of COVID-19 amongst the population. The Centers for Disease Control and the Federal Emergency Management Agency have both provided guidance to local communities. Some of the high points from what they've said is that you really have to take a whole community response. It rarely can be addressed through one action or another, or one agency or another. They acknowledge that a lack of housing can contribute to poor health outcomes. However, in this particular case, given the way that COVID-19 is transmitted, that an outdoor setting in some cases may be safer. But that being said, especially since we live in Montana, which has a risk of inclement weather, we have to think about mitigating the risks for folks who are sleeping outdoors. And one other kind of key suggestion they make is really to avoid clearing encampments, to limit dispersal of people in the community, and to limit dispersal of COVID-19 throughout the community, and also to try and avoid loss of access to services for people experiencing homelessness. So under the county's emergency operations plan, we're obligated to address the immediate health and safety needs of our entire population, including the homeless. And it requires us to work with other agencies and community partners to identify and address our local needs. So in terms of doing that, the community has been working through the emergency operations plan to deal with the fact that because of the pandemic, shelters are not operating at full capacity, and we have unhoused people living on the streets in cars in the encampment off Reserve Street and in other locations. And we know that many of these environments are unsafe, they lack the necessary services and facilities, and they pose health and safety hazards, both to the people who are homeless, but also to the rest of the community. And certainly, although homelessness is a long-term challenge for our community, the pandemic demands under our emergency operation plan that we work on temporary measures to address the particulars during this state of emergency. Missoula County also has a variety of policy in place that supports addressing the needs of people experiencing homelessness. The city and county both adopted Reaching Home, the 10-year plan to end homelessness, and the Missoula County Growth Policy includes a variety of goals and actions to address the need to provide access to employment, safe housing, transportation, and community services and amenities for all segments of our population. And under both our general policy and under the state of emergency, and as a result of those things, the county has formed partnerships to address the unmet needs of unhoused people. We've worked to follow federal guidance, provided needed facilities and service to the staff, secure site on private land, and provided resources to residents. And that's what the temporary safe outdoor space is about. The property itself is relatively large and it can absorb impacts associated with the use. There always will be the potential for impacts to neighboring properties, but because of where this property is located on the larger property, where the site's located on the larger property, the visual impacts have been limited, and it's buffered from the river, from the road, from the trail. But certainly those are always concerns. Also, because the subject property is located in close proximity to Missoula, as I've said before, there's access to emergency service providers, healthcare, hospitals, as well as to the community and employment opportunities through Mountain Line. In terms of the land use considerations, the property is zoned, again, under zoning district 39, primarily for single family residential uses. And this particular use is not specified as a permitted use in that zoning district. The land use, so that's the zoning, those are the rules that apply. In terms of any future zoning that might be applied to this property, the land use designation is what we would look towards. and it's designated primarily for working lands. That lighter shade of green is working lands. The darker shade is agriculture. And generally that allows what you would imagine, agricultural uses and things of that nature. At a relatively low intensity outdoor use like a campground wouldn't be inconsistent with that land use designation. So that's a wrap up of the findings. Essentially, we talked about the state of emergency, that the temporary safe outdoor space is set up in response and under the emergency operations plan to the state of emergency, how it addresses the emergency and the county policy that supports it, the partnerships that went into developing it, why this property may be suitable for this use, in spite of the zoning inconsistency that's in place. So after you consider public comment today and the findings in the staff memo, we've got a couple of possible options the commissioners may want to consider. Again, these are the same ones more or less that I mentioned at the beginning. One is that you could find that the temporary safe outdoor space can continue to operate at this location until the end of the current state of emergency. Or secondly, you could direct staff to prepare interim zoning to temporarily allow an emergency outdoor homeless shelter as a permitted use of the property. And with that, that's the end of my staff report. I will stop sharing my screen, but if you need me to come back and post those possible motions on the screen at the end of the hearing, I'm happy to do that.
Thanks a lot, Karen. So with that, we will take public comment, and I think the best thing to do here is if you're on Teams to raise your hand and
Oops, does it look like Josh froze?
Josh, I think you froze there for a second.
am I back?
You're back.
Yes.
Hey,
All right,
hey
thank
Josh.
you.
Hey, Josh,
Yes,
this is
sir.
Dave. Before we dive into general public comment, what do you think about it? I don't know if we have a representative from either Hope Rescue Mission or United Way, if they want to speak.
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm embarrassed that I forgot that. I'm hoping that they're here. Thank you. Anybody from United Way or Hope Rescue Mission like to lead us off?
This is Jim Hicks at Hope Rescue Mission, and I know Susan Hay-Patrick was going to be on as well. Susan, are you there? Because I think you wanted to start.
Oh, okay. Wanted to start. Sure. I guess I just want to say what I said yesterday at the public meeting, that this is a temporary solution, COVID related. Everyone involved, the both nonprofits, the county, emergency responders, local businesses, faith organizations are committed to doing everything we can to make this project succeed during this cold COVID winter. I will again say, and I'm sorry to those of you who have to hear me say this almost every day, we understand people's anger about this project because we're angry too, that we have not marshaled the collective will and resources to put an end to homelessness. We understand people object to spending public dollars on something like this. I urge you to advocate to your representatives to spend more public dollars on housing, not shelter, so that we don't have to cobble together underfunded short-term emergency solutions like the temporary safe outdoor space. That being said, we do believe it is a better outcome for the unhoused individuals who are already here. They're not being bussed here from other places, despite that popular myth. They are here in our community. This is a safer alternative for them and a safer alternative for the rest of us. Somebody said to me not long ago, somebody smart, it might have been Jim Hicks, two things. One, people don't become homeless because they run out of resources. They become homeless because they run out of relationships. This project is designed to build relationships with those facing the biggest barriers to housing and get them to the services and housing that they need to find sustainable, appropriate housing for their unique individual situations. I will again say there are no the homeless. Everyone is homeless for a different reason. The other thing that somebody smart said, I think it was Jim Hicks, when people say you're enabling people, Jim's response that I echo is, yes, we are enabling them to take steps to a better, healthier, more productive life. Because in 40 years of working on homelessness, my conclusion is that homeless people want what the rest of us want, which is a safe place to sleep at night, food on the table, and the opportunity to lead a better life. Yes, many of them face barriers, some by their own hand, many more by the hand they've been dealt. We feel an obligation to reach out to them, and we're committed to making this project succeed. Thanks for your time, and commissioners for your service.
Thanks, Susan.
This is Jim Hicks, Executive Director at Hope Rescue Mission. This has been quite a journey for us as we begin to look not only in March at COVID and what might happen there, but also at the current Reserve Street encampment that is illegal and unsanitary and unsafe. Begin to ask the questions, what might we do? In that process of looking at the questions, we began to look at various properties, and the statement then began to be, what is the best, worst place in Missoula? Because everybody wants to help the homeless, but nobody wants it by them. And we so understand that. That began the journey as we began to look at places and vet places, eliminate some, try to get others, make it fit. And we ended up on this place. The gracious property owners have offered this up. And we saw it being the best, worst place in Missoula and the county to have a temporary, safe outdoor space for these unhoused individuals. Just briefly, as has already been mentioned, it is staffed. We want to make it secure. We have facilities there for the restrooms, for trash pickup, for them to store their things that they've never had before. One comment from a resident was that this was the best night of sleep they had gotten in years, because at other encampments, they're always kind of facing the fight or flight, even during the night. But with this being staffed and being secure, being private, this has helped them. Let me underscore too that it is temporary. What is our exit plan? Because that's been asked over and over again. Just real briefly, the exit plan is if we can find them housing. And I know that's a huge goal, but that is the goal is that these people with upward mobility, we can walk with them and work with them, build relationships with them to help them navigate from where they are to where they can be housed. So that is an exit plan. But we also know that with the temporary nature of this at March, we are looking in my mind to go, where is the next best, worst place? Where might be the place that we can help these individuals continue to have upward mobility? I know there's many questions. We have questions too. We're working on it day by day, but we just want to submit this to the county commissioners, want to submit this to Missoula that we are really doing our best to provide this safe outdoor space that is legal, sanitary, and secure, and allows these residents to move forward.
Thanks, Jim. So we've heard from our service providers on site. Now let's open it up to general public. See Diane Stensland.
Hi, I just want to
Hello.
say I'm in support of this temporary outdoor shelter. We need some place for people to be safe while they're homeless. This is a temporary, staffed, safe place for people who have no alternative. That's all.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So after you've spoken, if you wouldn't mind taking your hand down, then we can see the next hand up. See Miller Creek Group.
Hi there.
Hello.
This is Kevin O'Reilly. I have a family and a business in the specific area. And one of my questions are in talking about safety. We mentioned safety for the residents that are being moved here and the safety of the community. A question and concern of safety for those involved is that highway is very busy coming from the Bitterroot into Missoula. And I believe one of the main things was talking about access to services. And the mountain line, I believe there is not a bus station for them to be able to access the mountain line without going across the busy highway. Concerns over that highway and how many accidents have occurred on that highway if people are walking around. Would like to have some clarity on the safety issues and services being provided for the homeless, and any thoughts towards the bus transportation and the dangers of being right next to a busy highway that I know has icy roads, icy conditions, icy river, and wondering how that has been factored into this discussion on this location. Thank you.
So my understanding, we're just doing comment, but April is here, and I think April would gladly answer your question. April.
Yep, we are working with these folks on site. So when they come on, they are signing a user agreement that is one of the requirements as they're on here to use the road properly and the bike path to the crosswalk. And we have been watching them do that, holding them accountable to making sure that not only for their safety, but for traffic and all the also have case management that now are picking up these folks that are connected with case management. They're picking them up on site, bringing them to and from. We do have an opportunity with a shuttle from River of Life to be able to shuttle some of these folks to showers and to clothing closets and food bank. And during that time, if they need to go in town, then we can work with them and drop them off. But really just working with them and letting them know what are the rules, what are their responsibilities to maintain the safety and what we're doing out here and honoring the project in a whole.
Thanks, April. All right. Anybody else? We have plenty of time, so feel free to speak up. Robert McHugh.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I own Eagle Self Storage right next door, and we're located at 4101 US Highway 93. We have a large customer base. We are completely fenced, but we still have problems. As a matter of fact, with people that are breaking in, and we've had problems with homeless. Actually, I don't believe they're homeless. I believe they're transients. And we've had problems with these folks breaking in, drug problems, that kind of thing. And now this camp has our attention and concern. And I'd like to know how you're going to distinguish between homeless people and transient people, because there truly is a difference. And I've been at that location for 20 some years. I've been in the business for 45 years. So I have a pretty good idea of who's for real and who isn't. And I've witnessed, different situations over the years where people have not been honest with us and they were storing things that shouldn't have been stored. And then we have a big remediation or cleanup bill. And so my concern is, will this camp attract nefarious activity? In other words, will there be people coming in and preying on these people to sell drugs, to disrupt, whatever? And I guess I asked that question because I've been told you're moving Reserve Street Camp there. And it's my understanding that there's been nothing but trouble with that camp, and that's one of the reasons why it's being moved. So it does have my attention. I want to go on record as making sure this group knows we are not against homeless people. As a matter of fact, we've been contributing through our church, through various organizations, the Poverillo. We're on record for giving a lot over the years. So homeless people are important to us. We want to help them. What I'm concerned about is the transient people that have been attracted to this area and that are taking advantage. And you can imagine I've worked with law enforcement for many, many years, and I understand some of the dilemmas they have. I've watched them clean out people underneath the Buckhouse Bridge that are underneath there. And for anybody who doesn't understand this, Buckhouse Bridge, Higgins Avenue Bridge, those types of bridges are supposed to be cleaned out periodically or checked because Homeland Security has it through the Patriot Act that people cannot reside under those bridges. If somebody who looks like they're a transient and could take a bomb underneath it and blow up that bridge, that would be a big issue. And so Highway Patrol comes in on a pretty regular basis. Our Missoula County Health Department comes through on a pretty regular basis when we call them to clean those people out from underneath there. And I've called the landowner many times over the years to tell him about transients that are living along the riverbank, dumping items into the river, needles, garbage, vast amounts of garbage over there. So we've always had a big concern about that. And now you've got an organized camp. And it also concerns me that we're spending money as a business person, as a person who pays many thousands of dollars in tax to help support my government. And it's no light deal to pay that tax. So for me, it's a concern that we're spending money to create something when we already have other places that we could have this camp. And the camp must be necessary. I mean, I take that at everybody's word, must be necessary. I don't know if it's necessary for transients, but it's certainly necessary for the homeless that have lost their jobs, need our help. But I guess I wonder why couldn't we use the fairgrounds, the southern end of the fairgrounds where it's grassy, roads are in, there's some infrastructure, bus stops that are there. You have I could be wrong on this, 30 to 40 acres of grass and roads where the horse barns used to be, the horse barns for the racehorsing folks. And I know this because I spent my youth back there helping clean stalls. My father-in-law raced horses. I know what it's like back there. And I was back there a couple of weeks ago, and it looks really nice. And those tent platforms would set very well back there. So if you're looking for a better option, already owned by the counties, by the taxpayers, why not consider that? Close access to services, medical, food, utilities are there. Why recreate the wheel on this whole thing? And plus, like the other gentleman said, the danger of being out there is of great concern to all of us. The other problem that I see, and I witness this every day, is I see the bicyclers coming by. They're dodging shopping carts. They're dodging those folks that are walking along that path, and they're dodging my entryway for that matter. The safety issues along there are large, and I think the commissioners need to really take it to heart, the real value safety of that particular location. Sure, I'm right next door, but I also see all the damage that's done. And I think it's going to be hard to control that damage. And the people that have been living along the river are still going to keep living there because what they want more than anything is they want their independence, they want their privacy. And living in a camp that's organized and controlled is not what they're looking for. So I think you'll still be cleaning them out from underneath the bridge.
All right, thanks, Mr. McHugh. There was a lot of questions embedded in all that comment. A couple that stuck out. Maybe we could see if we can get Jim or April on to answer. There was questions around security and a question on why this location, why not another location. I think those.
I'll just speak to the security. We are working with a private security company that will be on site 7 days a week that are going to be able to monitor those things, and all of the issues that I know that are being brought up. There are issues that have already existed on this side of town, and I really believe that it's an opportunity for us to expand our outreach to be able to help the businesses around this area and to really pay attention to what's going on. And another thing I would like to express is that people experiencing homelessness, they're for many reasons they're experiencing it, whether it's addiction, whether it's a bad circumstance, or just a mistake away from being homeless. Everybody deserves an opportunity for someone to care enough about them to help them change. And in this area, we've spent a lot of time building relationships with the folks that we did not bring an issue from reserve to this area. We gave them an opportunity to get out of that situation, to move forward in life, to be able to have something more permanent, as we all want. And as far as the security and the safety, we are working hard to make sure that these issues that once were in this area are things that we have put on record and things that we're going to do to help out in this area, as far as looking after the businesses and the transients, or however you want to say it, how we can reach out to them and how we can help them.
Thanks. So, April or Jim, would you like to speak to why this location? Why not a different location?
Yeah, let me speak to the issue of homeless versus transients first. Two huge categories with many layers in between. Simply from our point of view, the homeless would be those that want to cooperate to go forward. The transients are those that at this point do not want to cooperate and will continue to have to be outreached and watched, and is a challenge. The fairgrounds was on our list. There were, and to be honest, I threw that list away of why it wasn't approved on many different levels. But I don't know how far away we are from the school out in Miller Creek, the Jeanette Rankin School. I would guess a mile, maybe. But if we were at the fairgrounds, we would be in the back door of Russell Street School, and that would be a concern. There were other issues, and I'm sorry because that's been a few months, and I don't, maybe somebody on the call will remember, but we did vet the county fairgrounds, and it didn't meet the requirements that was needed.
Thanks, Jim. So Andy Mefford is up next, and we're going to try and keep these to 3 minutes if we can. So Andy, please.
Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate your time. I'll try to keep it brief and keep it in the sideboards or the issues. I have two really issues with this project. One issue is the camp itself and the merits of the camp. The second issue I have just as big of an issue with is not really related to the camp, but it's the process or the lack thereof. So I'll speak a little bit first on the, I guess, this application for the interim request for zoning. One of the questions, and I understand sometimes questions won't be answered, but I'll put it on the table. Typically, best I could tell, probably a $6,000 fee associated with such a request of anyone. I'm wondering if that fee has been paid or how that fee was addressed. I would be surprised there wasn't a fee. The other one is, it seems like you were presented with two options, and I think there's a third option on the table that should be on the table, and that is the say no and disband the camp. We're at a point now that we've let this ship sail. We've broken the ceiling. We went down this road, ignoring my other concern of process, And now we treat it as existing or it's here, and we're coming in and backfilling the regulatory process as we may, while we've ignored the public process. Many times when these emergencies are declared, there's public processes involved. We saw it on the Bitcoin, gun ordinances. The city, when they wanted to do emergency shelter at the Salvation Army, they had public hearings before they opened the doors and let people in. We've done the opposite. We went out and used money, poured it into this site and said, well, it's here now. So we either ignore it and call it temporary, or we permit it through zoning, which is concerning to me. We keep calling it temporary. Who's to say it's temporary? First off, how long are we in this pandemic? If this pandemic is the emergency, is it 2021? Is it 2022? I don't know when that is. So temporary, I heard on the call yesterday, was March. Well, I don't know that we're out of any emergency by March. It may be fall. It may be next year. So how long is temporary? I've had jobs before that's temporary and has went on for years. So this term temporary is very concerning. If it's temporary, we can't disband an illegal camp. I don't know how we think we're going to disband a quote legal one later. It gets very difficult. There was a lot of concerns brought up about the temporary nature. Notice to property owners in the vicinity. Who are our neighbors? We heard that yesterday about sexual and violent offenders. We never really got a clear answer about if they're there or not. And if they aren't, will they be permitted in the future? The safety concerns of the highway, access off, MDT, have they been discussed about this approach? We're doing a lot of things with a little vetting of the public process. I have probably 10 to 12 really concerning regulatory issues that have been glossed over. I got an email today from the department, many of you have probably seen, and I think there's a lot of very favorable determinations being made in this process that I don't think the general public would receive, which is very concerning about process. And I guess the kind of the closing to this is, if the solution to this homelessness is housing, then I hope these favorable determinations that are made and this lack of regulation and process, that option is afforded to other private developers, individuals trying to develop affordable housing in this community, to put those things in place so that they have a place to go. Because we spend months and months and thousands of dollars beating heads to get these outcomes, and this is being skipped over in this process. So with that, I'll close.
Thanks. Thanks, Andy. Devin Baum.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess, I'm a resident in Lower Miller Creek, and I guess, first of all, this whole camp kind of came out of nowhere. And I think it's really started off with a bad taste in everybody's mouth as far as April, I think you mentioned in the Missoulian that, this happened quickly. It was an emergency. It just had to happen. So you didn't have time to notify the public. But in the same article, you're saying that you had enough time to put together all the logistics for this program to make sure that you had the security, you had the showers and all of that. And so I think with that, it's really turned a lot of people off, feeling that it was really put in very sneakily. And I agree with the last gentleman. I really want to know what the background checks are. I want to know what the rules are for the residents that are there, what the criteria is to be able to be a resident there. One of the articles that was put out said that alcohol would be allowed in there as long as it wasn't a large amount. And so I'm curious, as far as if you're going to have alcohol in there with people who already have alcohol issues, which we know from the reserve camp, after hearing about the cleanup work that was done there in the past, where they had to wear hazmat outfits in order to clean that area. And that they're the needles that are in our river, the needles that were out there to pick up. So if you're taking people from the reserve camp and moving them out here, you've got them on the side of the freeway, and you may have security there, but how are you going to ensure that those people, if there's, you're going to be helping them, obviously trying to help them with their addictions, any issues they're going through. But yet, if somebody runs out onto that freeway, that is the traffic there is ridiculous. And for somebody just driving by, if they were to hit someone, that would just be devastating to both the sides of that. And I just don't know how you're going to contain an area like that. I guess I would just never think that you would put something like this on the side of the freeway. And one of my other questions is, under the Reserve Street Bridge, I've noticed that some of the tents have been taken out. Piles of garbage are being left there. It's really disgusting under there. And I'm just curious if people are going to be going back through there cleaning that up, or are the residents that lived there under the Reserve Street Bridge, are they going to be cleaning it up? And I do want to make sure that, you understand that I am not against helping the homeless. I do feel like the Reserve Street Bridge camp is very much transients. And, when you drive by Reserve Street, you see people climbing over, climbing back over. It's a very sketchy area. And I guess I feel like the population that we're catering to right there isn't the population that I feel we should be looking to be helping. We should be looking to be helping people, like April said, that are, one step away from, everybody's a check away from homelessness anymore. Those are the people I feel that we should be helping, and people who have, a mental issue or things like that. I'm just really concerned about what type of people are going to be living there.
April, do you want to speak to some of those security issues? I know there was a ton in there, but just if you hit on.
I do want to speak to, I'll just go over real quick what they're signing. It's no violence, no weapons, no substance use, possession on site, no trading, selling substances, no theft, no fires, no guests due to COVID, no disruptive behavior. We do have a quiet time from 10 to 6 a.m. No discriminatory or oppressive behavior, uphold good neighbor guidelines. And there's a lot of these that we can, if you want to email tsos@hopemontana.org, we can definitely share this information with whoever is interested in what we have and what they're signing to be a resident here on site. And I just want to speak real quick to the Reserve Street encampment. Yes, we did transition folks over to this area. And in the process, what we did was we removed the structures and things that were there and put them in a pile. We are having a big cleanup this Saturday, so that one big pile that you can see off the highway and the one encampment next to it will be completely cleaned at the end of the day on Saturday. And as far as speaking to the people that we have over here, all of the things that you said you think that are the ones who need the help are exactly the ones that are here and have agreed to these user and the rights and responsibilities of this place. And to just let you know, there's a few on site that have full-time jobs at minimum wage, and it's just a process to help them. How do they get housing when you have to have 3 times the rent to even qualify? So that's what I have.
Thanks, April.
Oh, I think Josh froze.
Dave, are you muted?
You froze and I muted. Yeah, we lost you for a second. If you were saying anything, you were frozen.
Darn it. Thanks.
But you're back.
Well, I was just saying, is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I see Miller Creek has a hand up.
Oh, gosh. I can't see that. Thanks, Juan. It's not coming up on my screen.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, hi, my name is Noah Castle. Some of you have heard me speak on here before. I have a business here, the Silver Slipper. I'm also a resident in the neighborhood. And I'm not gonna go over all the same stuff over and over again with the differences between homeless and transients and all this. I just wanna kind of make clear that as somebody that lives in the area and does business in the area, that the security and what goes on at this facility are not my biggest concern, even remotely. What I'm concerned with, just like Bob is concerned with, is all of the folks that are drawn to the area that do not follow the rules, that do have all the problems that we're talking about. And I see it daily. And I have to tell you, April, Jim, Susan, all of you, I invite you to come and stay at the Silver Slipper for as many days as you'd like and help us run some security. I'm not concerned about the security of this shelter. I'm concerned about the security of our establishment with the folks that have been doing drugs in our parking lot, on our patios. The folks that are not being taken care of in this facility are landing on my front door. And I think that you will see, if you came here, that we have a problem that has been escalating for years now since they closed the access to the bridge down there. This is something that is going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. I keep hearing things like, hey, they had the greatest, great night's sleep here. Well, the person you talked about, that's been 2 years now. So I'm not sure if that person is looking for a home or not. But some of these folks are looking for handouts and are looking for really just anything that you guys will do to help them. If you don't want them in your facility, they're going to land in my parking lot. And my kids, this bridge and the pathway from here to the mall, you guys know that the North and Johnson Street location has been nothing but problems since it started. It's dangerous. The mall keeps getting things stolen from it. Every business along here is in, jeopardy because of this. And I think that if you folks spend some time thinking about the public health and safety of those outside of this shelter, you'd find that there's a big list of problems that are being created because of this. You guys have tunnel vision. You're trying to help one group of people, everybody else. And that's all I have to say.
All right, do we have anyone else?
Josh, there are some phone numbers down
Thanks,
at the
Riley.
bottom.
Can't see. Yeah, please call them out.
Yeah, let me go ahead and just go through. And if you have anything to say, if you're on the line, go ahead and unmute yourself, and you're welcome to do that now. We'll start with number ending in 1646. Okay, and then we'll go to the number ending in 8730. Okay, how about, we have a number ending in 8234. You may have to press *67 to unmute. Okay, and then we'll go down to number ending in 0066.
I see Josh Decker has his hand up.
Perfect, cool.
Hi, my name's Josh Decker. I'm a resident of Ward 1, and boy, I am so glad that we have a group of professionals in this town associated with the United Way and associated with Hope Rescue Mission, and the forethought of our county commissioners to address at least the evidentiary end of a problem that extends far beyond the problem we're describing. Thank you to Hope Rescue Mission. Thank you to the United Way for your work on stemming the bleed that is happening in our society. Our community is not unlike many other communities, is saddled with the weight of an economic system that targets relentlessly the working class. And I'll address some of the misconceptions that I have heard portrayed by neighbors of the area, the folks that are obviously couching opposition to the project in supposed support of our unhoused neighbors, but folks, if you get on a voucher waiting list in this town, it can take up to 2 years to get an apartment or to get housed. I've recently helped a neighbor that finally got housing in the Beehive residential center after waiting for 2.5 years to get housing, sleeping out in the elements for 2.5 years after being, in line for services. We're facing an eviction crisis that's going to hit us like a steamroller on January 1st. If national numbers hold true in Missoula, some 19 million people will be potentially at risk of eviction nationwide. That's a little less than 6% of America. And if that number visits Missoula, we're talking about 4,200 Missoulians or more that will be at risk of eviction. And this problem is not going to get smaller. And the problem is not lack of will or various other, misnomered problems. The problem is capitalism. The problem is that we live in an economic system that will bleed everyone dry before moving to provide services or provide help. I appreciate the organizations that are providing services. What I wish was happening is that policy was being advocated for that would help these problems. I think for every hour that we spend on a service-based solution, we should be spending an hour on a policy-based solution as well. Medicare for all is a homelessness solution. A fight for a $15 an hour minimum wage is a solution for our unhoused neighbors. And we need to be working on those policies. We talk about the creation of affordable housing in our community. If we regulated Airbnbs with responsible and realistic policies, we'd have enough roofs instantly to house all the people that are waiting for housing in this community. But instead, we have folks like the gentleman that spoke earlier that are running storage facilities for people that have housing and too many possessions to stay to keep at their residence. So they need a secondary roof for all of their stuff. I'm not concerned. I'm honestly unconcerned about folks that need an off-site storage facility to keep all of their toys and gear and Christmas decorations out of the rain. I'm concerned about the folks that are under the boot of capitalism in this town. It's only going to get worse. We're going to see eviction proceedings begin at the county courthouse on January 1st. And heaven help us at that point. Thank you again so much for the United Way Hope Rescue Mission and the foresight of our county commissioners to address the symptoms of this problem. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak who hasn't spoken yet? I see Andy Holzel.
Yes, thank you. Hi, my name is Andy Helsel. I'm a Missoula County resident. I am calling in. This is a hard meeting to participate in as a person who resonates deeply with the things that were just stated by Josh Decker and cares about all the members of our community and is not at all interested in separating people into categories about whether or not they do or don't want to change the circumstances of their lives. What I'd like to see us do is care about all of those people regardless. And while this is an imperfect solution to the problem of homelessness in our community, I think it is absolutely necessary. And I'm very appreciative of the work of county commissioners to see that while there are always, we always have our hands tied in public office, it seems. And that's incredibly frustrating for those of us who work in organizing and activism. But it is really refreshing to see people trying their best to work within those limits to do what's necessary to keep people safe. I'd like to see all of our neighbors get housing first. I'd like us to recognize not only as a society, but as individuals that housing is a human right. That while some of our community members own multiple properties, many of them own none. And as was clarified by Josh Decker, the list for the vouchers, the waiting list for affordable housing is thousands of people long. So just being on that list and getting a job that pays next to nothing does not make it possible to all of a sudden lift yourself up out of whatever circumstances you might be in. Recently, a displacement risk ratio study was done on the city of Missoula. The presentation can be found online. That presentation found through extensive research that every single neighborhood in this community, people are at risk of being displaced from their housing. I am really, really, really saddened to hear people go on a list of stereotypes and assumptions about who unhoused people are, who transient people are, and then quickly at the end say, don't get me wrong, I care about addressing homelessness in this community. It sure as heck doesn't sound like that. It sounds like you care about addressing your neighbors and helping your neighbors so long as they look and act a certain way. And I am not here to tolerate that as a member of this community. I am here to ask that all of us look deep inside of ourselves and see that what we actually need to do is care about and work hard for every single one of those people, no matter presenting, no matter how they are behaving, no matter what got them into the circumstances they're in. I understand that it can be difficult to be a neighbor of, you know, whether people are behaving in ways that feel scary to you, but the truth is that happens everywhere. And when you talk about the safety of your kids and what's happening in your parking lot, my kids and I talk very openly about what it means to see somebody who might be acting erratically, who might be using substances, what it means, what we do when we find needles, why they might be there. That's a thing you can do. But what we're not going to do in this community is continue to shut those people out, ask them to hide somewhere else, call the police so that we can, you know, just somehow lock up the problems of our society. That's not what we're here to do. So I'm here to thank commissioners and supporting agencies for trying to find solutions to this problem while they may be temporary and we need other solutions. I appreciate the effort to do this. I'm incredibly grateful. And I want to just say that I support on every level, not just in my words, my unhoused neighbors. Thank you so much.
Let's see, Diane.
Hi, this is Diane again, and I just wanted to thank Andy for saying what I couldn't say earlier. I agree with her totally. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks. See, Clem work. Oh, unless he went away. I see Michael Workman. Oh, there's Clem. Sorry about that. Their names were popping up and going away. Let's do Clem and then Michael.
Yeah. As a friend of both Andy Holtzels and Bob McHughes, I want to say that we as a community, as a housed and often people, have an obligation to care for the least among us at a time when the need is rising. This solution may not be perfect. None of us thinks it's perfect, but it is safe. It is the best possible alternative, and it provides good services for people in great need. Thanks.
Thanks, Clem. Michael.
Thanks, Josh. My name is Michael Workman. I was born and raised here in Missoula County. I want to just talk a little bit briefly about my dad, who's an extremely hardworking individual. And I have to say that I'm extremely frustrated that I even have to say that to justify what I'm about to tell you. So he's suffered from mental illness and addiction all his life and all of my adult life, and has been on the brink of homelessness, entire adult life, and periodic bouts with homelessness. The precarity that he faces is not uncommon, and I, like him, am privileged in that I don't suffer from debilitating mental health struggles that he does. Because of this, I've been lucky enough to have some success in my life, and I've been able to attend an elite university. I worked hard, but I did not work hard as he does. I did not work as hard as my mom does. And I did not work as hard as many people who are unhoused every day in this community and all around this nation, or people who are on the brink of it. Although many of us want to believe that we live in a world where hard work is rewarded and you simply work hard to live in a stable life, this is simply a fallacy. I watch my dad struggle to get what he needs every single day. Humiliation and frustration that he feels is devastating. Just trying to navigate the overly complicated network of social programs just so that he can have housing. And I'm saddened by the amount of disgust that my fellow community members in this call have shared with the towards the homeless community here. I'm in support of the county doing anything in their power to help the vulnerable members of our community. And I believe that this is not necessarily, this isn't a fix to the structural problem, but it's something, and it will definitely save lives during cold Montana winters. I would like to tell you that there is a way, if you're disgusted by homeless people, or you don't want to see them around, or they scare you, or whatever that is, there is a way that you do not have to see this anymore. And that solution is housing. The solution is ending homelessness. And the county can't do that. The city can't do that. The state can't do that. But all of these together, plus the nation, can. And we need to fight a lot harder to make those solutions happen. And it's going to take a really long time. I would respectfully disagree with some of the sentiments that have been said today about homelessness being the running out of relationships and not the lack of resources. The lack of resources actually destroys the relationships and lives. And I've seen that happen in my own life. I'm glad to see the county is committing to doing this and to creating this encampment. I want to make sure that the county is not going to evict the people at the Reserve Street encampment. Some of the assumptions that have been made in this call about them are honestly just fallacious. I know that I and many people in this call have direct relationships with people in the Reserve Street encampment. And I would implore you, if you're making assumptions, to go down there and help your neighbor out and get to know them, see who those people actually are. It's clear to me that people who are making assumptions have not done that. I also want to just quickly address that the dehumanizing separation of homelessness and transient is completely arbitrary and seems as a way where you can justify your lack of support for homeless people while also simultaneously saying that you support homeless people. I would implore you, if you say that, to not just say it and do it through your actions. We need as much community support for our vulnerable members as possible, and I support this going forward. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Michael. Any other hands up, or April or Violet? Do you see any phone numbers up?
Let's see. I believe there's two that I haven't given the chance to comment yet, so I'll just do that quickly. So we have the number ending in 7692. And then lastly, looks like a number ending in 3853, and you might have to press *67 to unmute yourself. Okay, I think that's all the phones.
All right, I think we're trying to limit this to people who have not yet spoken. So if you have not yet spoken, see Lisa Smith.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi there. Longtime Missoula resident. I've been here for about 14 years. I am definitely in support of this project, and I'm glad to see that some solutions are going forward, even though they're temporary. I'm really disappointed to hear the NIMBYism in this phone call. When I hear things like being worried about violent and sexual offenders and people struggling with addictions, those people are also housed, and those people are your neighbors. And I would challenge you to go onto the registry and look at the sexual and violent offenders that are in your neighborhood. They're not just homeless. And we need to remember that and not attribute these stereotypes to them. The Section 8 waiting list in Missoula is actually 3 to 5 years long. And even when a person does get a Section 8 waiting list, the landlords do not have to accept it. Right now, I know personally of property managers who have rented units out from under Section 8 voucher holders to get twice and triple the rent from other people who can afford it. We know that a minimum wage job cannot support somebody with housing. We know that a minimum wage job does not pay enough. So the issue that we should be focusing on, instead of focusing on this NIMBYism and attributing these stereotypes to these homeless people, let's focus on one of the root causes, which is affordable housing. There are lots of groups that people can get involved in that are working towards solutions. You know, we're facing a massive eviction issue right now, and this problem is only going to get worse if this massive eviction does go forward. So definitely in support. I encourage the people who are doing this NIMBYism to kind of educate yourself a little bit, get to know those people and get involved in these groups that are helping them. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
God damn it.
Don't know how to respond to that. Anybody else who has not yet spoken that would like to speak? Okay, Dave or Juan, would you either of you guys like to make any comment? And we do have some potential action we can take.
Yeah, maybe it would be helpful if Karen brought up the screen with potential motions from earlier.
Thank you.
Hey, Biggs. Forewarning, give Dad the seat out of your car. Mine's got the liquor on it.
Do we need to mute
Can
someone
Violet-
else?
Yeah.
Do you have it up there? I think I have it up. Are the motions showing?
Yep, they are.
Yeah.
Yes. Dave or Juan, do you guys have anything you'd like to say, or?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just taking in all the comment and
Oh, I don't mean to rush you. I'm sorry.
yeah, and struggling with like what our specific request is at this moment, and then also kind of struggling with this larger conversation that the comments felt like we're trying to address, and that conflict between, you know, care for care for victims, if you will, and then at the same time that tension of preserving our institution and traditions that sustain a moral community, and that tension, and so I'm chewing on that, but that is not what we're here to make a motion on. So
well, yeah, if I might break the ice a little. Yeah, so before we get to a possible course of action by way of a motion, just I guess a few introductory comments. And first of all, thanks so much to everyone who has been engaged today, who's participated, and a special thanks to the United Way and Hope Rescue Mission for stepping up in this time of national and community-wide crisis to fill a gap, which is not a permanent solution. No one's under the illusion that is the case, but we are, and as a community, and these two community groups in particular, are attempting to do what we can to address an acute need. And this is not to say that during the course of the pandemic or this emergency, homelessness just arose spontaneously. No, it's existed here for a long time and has been a struggle that we've been trying to figure out, but it's become ever more acute due to the need for social distancing and facilities that otherwise could operate at a much higher capacity not being able to do so currently. So we've heard a few times today the comments, I'm not against the homeless, but, and I will be blunt with folks, I find some level of disingenuousness with that, in that is followed by some comments that I'm not against the homeless, but this type of people, I even saw this in one of the comments I read today, this type of people who apparently are currently living along the river by Reserve Street, or who might potentially be living at this encampment, are not the type of people that I think are quality homeless. And I find that somewhat offensive and falling into old stereotypes that I think if you were to visit with some of the people who are experiencing homelessness, you might come to a different conclusion. I was talking to my daughter yesterday. She was asking what I was doing on the job, and I mentioned, well, we're going to have this public hearing coming up related to the temporary safe outdoor space. And she wanted a little bit more detail in terms of what did that mean, and why are folks maybe opposed to this, and of the myriad reasons. And I don't want to be completely dismissive here, because folks who talked today are expressing their real felt and lived experience of criminal activity or undesirable activity at their places of business or in their neighborhoods. And that deserves to be mitigated and addressed. But one of the concerns that I mentioned to my daughter was that some folks might feel that individuals who are experiencing homelessness need to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. And my 14-year-old daughter, maybe out of some level of naivete based on her age and generation, asked, "What are bootstraps?" And the irony did not escape me, because I think what many of us have drifted into is a collective sense of amnesia over how we have gotten to the place of stability in our lives that we may be experiencing. We have all been touched by others, have been supported by both visible and invisible safety nets and relationships and resources. And the folks who are experiencing homeless in our midst, that has fallen apart for them in some way. And I think it's a reality check for us to recognize how we have come to the places that we individually are today. And it likely was not simply by our own volition and by our own hard work, even if that was a part of it. So as I hear folks wonder, ought we to be giving a handout or a hand up to the homeless or to transients, I want to say, let us spend our time not parsing those words and those categories, but let's just put out our doggone hand and help folks out in this time of crisis. So in this season of hope and light, of compassion, care, and generosity, I would say let's do what we can to make the best of maybe a worst option viable. And I would support, I won't make a formal motion, but I would lean towards supporting option one, to operate under our emergency powers and emergency proclamation to allow the temporary safe outdoor space to exist.
Thanks a lot, Dave. That was really well said. So for my own comments, I just want to step back in time a little bit to last fall. If I understand it right, last fall, the amount of camping under Reserve Street illegally, trespassing and camping illegally in an unsanctioned and unsanitary way under Reserve Street, that number was down into the single digits. And it was so because folks at the Hope Rescue Mission and through the POV and their HOT team had been spending the time and effort to build rapport and trust, and bit by bit and person by person attempt to get folks who are literally living way off the social grid into services. And we're talking about people who suffer all these ills that have been mentioned. And then you add on to that the fact that they've been unsheltered. I would ask anybody to sleep outside for a few nights, not with really good gear, and how do you feel? And eat crappy food for a few days, and how do you feel? And be completely physically insecure for a few days, and how do you feel? You do this for a whole bunch of days, you will be traumatized. Anyway, Hope Rescue Mission and the folks at the POV had worked really hard to get past some of the obstacles I'm talking about and get people into services and into housing, and that population down at the bridge by Reserve Street had dropped into the single digits. Then we had COVID. Organizations like the POV are doing the very best they can, but their capacity was cut in half. The city responded by helping to create yet another winter shelter site at the old Sheck Church. Again, not enough space given people are 6 feet apart. And we saw a population under the Reserve Street Bridge swell and really wreak environmental and social havoc down there. It's not a good situation. We are in an emergency, a declared emergency. That's the reason why these folks are living under the bridge by Reserve Street and not in the POV. This, what we're talking about here, this is a response to that emergency and hopefully strips away some of the most awful pieces of what happens under Reserve Street. And then this is safe, orderly, sanctioned, secure, clean, services provided, and every effort made to get people into services. There are comparisons made here to Reserve Street. It's nothing like that. This is the opposite. And it is not enough. As a bunch of callers pointed out, we're putting a Band-Aid on a big wound. And for people who live nearby, this is deeply uncomfortable. And I certainly hear that. This is the best of a worst solution, as somebody pointed out. This isn't an answer to the problem. This is an answer to a symptom of a problem. But I am really proud that we're associated with it as a county, and I'm really proud of our agencies for stepping forward. I'll end it there.
And I guess continuing with that pride, I'm proud of the volunteers and local businesses that have helped make this happen. I mean, I think folks have referenced relationships and working with this population that's had so much trauma and shame, and how difficult that is to overcome, and to believe that you're worthy of housing, you're worthy of assistance. I mean, that takes a long time and the patience of Job to work with. And so here's an opportunity where we can meet people where they're at and help them move forward, I think, as April said. So what can we do as elected officials? If we can do this, I want us to be able to do this and hold ourselves accountable and use this as an opportunity, like April was saying, is to improve that outreach in this area with people who are already living in this area, businesses, and it feels like there's an opportunity here to move forward in a more structured way. Yes. So yeah, with that, I'm gonna make a motion for option 1. I move that the temporary safe outdoor space may continue to operate at this location until the end of the current state of emergency. Which, correct, it's I believe someone was asking, when does emergency over? And I don't think we know that. It's a declared state of emergency that we're operating under right now that allows us to access resources.
I will second that. In this month of December 2020, in the midst of a global pandemic, I think it is our moral obligation to do what we can as community members to clothe the naked and feed the hungry. So I'm in support of option 1.
Thanks, guys. This is a declared emergency, and in an emergency, the solutions we come up with are imperfect. That's what this is. It's the best we can do, and I'm proud we're doing it. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody. Do we have any other business? All right, seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Thanks everybody who came today.